Okay, awesome. It looks like some people are still working on joining us, but we will go ahead and get started. Thank you so much to everyone who is joining us. My name is Zoe Phillips. I'm an assistant editor at Dance Media, and I'm super excited to introduce Kevin Whitmire, who is the assistant director of admissions at CalArts Dance. So thank you so much for joining us, Kevin.
Oh my gosh,
We
thanks
will
for
just,
having me.
yeah, super excited. We're just going to dive into a discussion on what it means to study dance in an interdisciplinary program. And people can submit questions through the chat, and also there should be a Q&A section, and we'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end so Kevin can answer all your questions too. So Kevin, I guess I wanted to start by asking what's in an arts education. So just like broadly, what is art in general? How does art in general enrich a student's ability to engage with the world around them, whether that be film, music, visual art, performance, all of the above?
Well, oh my gosh, that's such a great question. Overall, I think arts education, especially from a standpoint of how you really look at art, I always like to, even though we're talking obviously to performing artists right now, hello, dancers, I'm assuming everyone's dancers probably in the room. One of the things I like to highlight is this idea of conceptual art, which comes from, visual art, which is that idea determines the discipline. And I talk about this because sometimes the idea behind the art making practice, like coming up with that kind of idea and that structure and starting to frame that way of thinking, it's very, I think, it caters into problem solving. It caters into many ways of just navigating space. It caters into so many, I think, avenues of just training your brain to think a bit differently than, the average individual. But what's to say the average individual is? I just think it's a unique way of thinking. And I always bring it back to like that scientific method where you're kind of questioning what that problem is. Like initially, you propose that question. So I think that it's just kind of training the brain in different ways to kind of be open and receptive in many different avenues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about kind of like a conceptual or idea-based discipline. So like starting with like a concept at large that's not necessarily tied to a specific medium, and then working from there.
No, definitely. I think with performing arts in particular too, we always forget to ask the why. Why are we on stage? Why is my voice deserved to be heard? Or why is my body expressing this story? And I think when you start kind of thinking like that, it just kind of deepens the work, but also enriches what you offer, I think, to the world and, even to other career opportunities.
Yeah. And then kind of like from a professional standpoint, in terms of like marketable skills that you can market in a job force, I would imagine that going through a program and spending 4 years studying something related to art kind of it makes you positioned to have a different and maybe more unique perspective
Oh,
on different types of problems.
Oh, 100%. I also think there's such a value in an arts education. I think initially when you think of going to school and becoming an artist, you think of like this poor starving artist that might be working, at a coffee shop, which is a great image to have. It's very romantic, but I think a lot of schools really press the boundaries of making sure our students aren't doing that, but kind of being a working professional right out of the gate when you kind of come into a college setting. And I know we at CalArts really take that very seriously. And I think sometimes, I know we're going to talk a little bit about interdisciplinary kind of training and kind of exposing yourself to other art forms and just allowing yourself to be more marketable is one of the ways I think you can definitely enrich yourself as an artist and just make yourself more marketable.
Yeah, yeah. I guess my next question would be, so what does it look like when we start to take all of these different art forms and combine them, dance with film, film with music, dance with music, that's an obvious one, but
Right.
how does that make things the whole is bigger than two parts kind of
Oh my
situation?
gosh. Well, I think it opens the door for different career opportunities that maybe you didn't even know existed.
Mhm.
And I think even for a lot of students that come to CalArts, for example, we really do explore dance in music, dance in film, dance in animation. And sometimes you're eating lunch with some of the best animators in the world. 29% of our student body is international. So I think that that's very vibrant for our students. But one of the things I just want to talk about overall is when you're looking at these, your art forms such as dance in these other mediums, such as animation, I know one dancer that had come into our program, she never even dreamed of motion capture. She just really kind of solely wanted to focus on, ballet, and really wanted to, have that linear career. We're getting signed with the company, and which is great, fantastic. And she started to work with some animators that they had these dots that were all on her body. And then she started moving. And then there was this creature, this avatar replicated behind her. And then that was something that was definitely palpable for her. And she kind of translated and just like, this is really great. This is fantastic. And I know now she's working for Universal. So it kind of just opens up this lens of different things you can do. And I think even with clothing lines and how different brands are looking at, artists, and especially, people that have heightened movement training that can kind of understand space and navigate that as well. I think that there's so many other avenues that you might not even know until you kind of start branching out and, taking advantage, I think, of other people's projects.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it, on top of opening your eyes to the possibilities of what you can do kind of like in an art form or in art in general, it also opens your eyes to the possibilities of what you can do sort of in life and professionally. Like
Oh,
like you
100%.
mentioned clothing lines, that's not something that you would ever think about, like
No, yeah.
getting a BFA. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think starting to think like this while you're young is amazing, because I will say, I was training for Cirque du Soleil for a while, and you just realize your body just gets older. And I think like, when you start thinking in different ways where you find these other passions and you know that you are so marketable in these other different avenues, it's just not just about performance, but it's also about that mind-body connection, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering if you had any more sort of examples from the curriculum at CalArts, like what projects and classes or other structures really make it so that students can be not just like taking different types of art classes side by side, but like combining them and putting them together, and what that turned out to be.
Definitely. One of the things I think that's vibrant in the hallways of just like CalArts, for example, and even other schools that would be interdisciplinary for other programs you're looking at, is on the walls. There's a lot of different advertisements. It'll be an animator seeking a voice actor for this, or seeking a dancer to come in and work on this project, or this film is doing this sci-fi like thesis that they need someone to kind of come in and choreograph like this kind of alienistic like movement palette or movement quality. So I think that there's so many things that happen just organically within the walls. But then alongside of that, even if you're not like an extrovert, or if you're like, I don't know if I want to, talk to this, and take advantage of these different projects, or speak to this person next to me at lunch. I think that you can also take advantage of it in a curriculum. I know that there's a class taught by the dean of the dance school and the dean of the music school, and it's 20 musicians and then it's 20 dancers, and they partner up. And then it's called music composition. And then the one week, the dancer is kind of head of the piece and they kind of collaborate together. And then the following week, then it switches over to the musician. And it's amazing to see how all the artists just grow from the start of that semester till the end, because it's like maybe the cello's a part of the piece, or like maybe like the strings are just the only thing dancing. I don't know. Anyway, we're just kind of riffing, but
Yeah.
there's classes that are also built in the curriculum that you can take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how do you see that sort of in like the professional world, like when you get to work with so many different types of brains and like so many different ways of thinking, how does that translate like post-graduation? How does that maybe
Well,
set?
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say at CalArts in particular, and a lot of other interdisciplinary schools that offer this. But one thing I love about CalArts is we do walk the walk and talk the talk when it comes to having faculty that is working professionals. I would say if you just look at really what they're doing, the work that they're doing right now is very radical and very vibrant. And I would say that the faculty that you're in the room with, regardless of the name of the school or where you're going, they're the people that are taking this out and then like putting that into your brain and giving you all that information. So that's really who you're soaking all that information from. So I would say that coming to a school that really has professionals that are already in the field and already working, it's nice to know that you are. I know in our program in particular, we do treat you like a working professional, as I mentioned multiple times, but I think that as artists, our career started yesterday. So I think, even tailoring our academic classes that are not just Algebra 20 or Chemistry 19, those classes probably don't even exist. But I know classes that we do offer are going to be like anatomy for the dancer, grant writing courses, different things that are going to make you right out of the gate start already kind of working or being in that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would imagine it also like, yeah, it sets you up for professional success way
Oh,
younger,
definitely.
and it also allows you to then become more flexible, right? Like how often do you see a student come in as a freshman thinking, okay, like I'm going to major or I'm going to go for ballet, or I'm going to go for this, and then by the time they graduate they're on a completely different career goal.
Oh, completely. That happens so frequently. And I think just being open to that, I think that that's one of the other vibrant things about being exposed to so many different other art forms is you're going to find different loves. And I think that that's something that's just really enriching. And also even just different styles of movement. I know that we really focus on a broad range of contemporary style of dance that we now offer within our technique training. And we really look at the hierarchy of ballet, contemporary, and hip hop, and it's all even, completely even. So I think that we also don't have placement for technique as well, because this idea of being competitive, we really just want to build this opportunity for people to really start kind of collaborating and really start getting their voice and be heard and working together, which sounds so simple, but it's definitely can be very challenging, I think, as artists. And also when you're in a position such as dance, that it is very, it's very linear. And I think that the journey is then kind of what's next. Is it creating your own projects? Is it, developing your, I don't know, your own company, for example? But that list goes on.
Yeah. So you said you mentioned like dance is very linear, or like our conceptualization of dance is often really linear, excuse me.
Yeah.
How, like when you take all of these other art forms, film, music, cinema, visual art, and start to combine it with dance, how does that like break up that linearity and like just like make a whole new world of possibilities?
I think you learn that there's no rules. I don't know. When you start thinking about like site specific work, and the reality is, I think that, the modern day audience isn't putting on their great gowns and going out to like the opera or the theater or, seeing these grandiose experiences. So how can we make it more modern? And I think that one example is we look at technology constantly. And I think that how can we not? We're in technology right now. So I think that we have like 360 cameras, and we started to really look at kind of this opportunity of bringing, actual concerts to different arenas and different spaces that might be virtual, and also just looking at different platforms there. We also have an outdoor dance theater as well that I think is pretty vibrant. It's kind of like a Tetris board. So it reminds me of Tetris. It has nothing to do with Tetris, but it can travel across the globe. So it was in, I believe, the desert. So it was in like Joshua Tree area, and then it was in downtown LA, and then it toured over to Paris, and now it's on our soccer field. So it's just nice because it's, sunny Santa Clarita here in California. It's nice to, take technique class outside, but also to make your audience more at your fingertips, or bring the stage to them.
Yeah, that's really cool. I guess like the next section that I wanted to cover was the application. So you've decided interdisciplinary dances for you. What's it like then actually applying to a program that wants its students to engage in this many different mediums? Like where would you start?
I would also say, regardless of your background, if you go to this really great school, or if you have a lot of resources at your fingertips, whatever you have at your fingertips is enough. And what I mean by that is if you have access to a phone or anything that you're recording, anything at all is worth its weight in gold, and it doesn't separate anyone as far as applying or whatever your background is. I think just knowing that you're enough wherever you are in this state of life, I think is so important. I also just want to advise one of the things we offer is like when you apply to CalArts, you do have to do 2 letters of recommendation, and then there's an artist statement. And I think a lot of schools will have you do artist statements or different statements, and it's different for school to school. So always look at the website and know. But talking about CalArts in general, I always hate this idea of an artist statement or like just statement in general. And I say, think of it as a personal diary. This is your opportunity to just show who you are as an artist. How did you discover movement? What is your dance DNA is something we like to say a lot at CalArts. How did you just discover movement? Why do you want to study dance? Like why CalArts, or why are you looking at working with this faculty in particular? I think starting to ask yourself these questions and thinking of this like as a personal diary allows us to really understand who you are.
Yeah.
Just some food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess kind of in that line, if you don't, if in your dance training in the past, like if you don't have that much experience sort of dancing outside of the box and thinking about all of the stuff that we're talking about, combining different things and opening up different avenues, how do you demonstrate an open-mindedness or like an enthusiasm for that new approach, whether in the audition or in that statement?
No, yeah, valid. I think just expressing where you see yourself wanting to go. I think always look at what is success for you, but also what do you want out of the program, you know? And I think just being very honest and open about that. I also really strongly advise if you know that these three schools are like the end all be all, you have to go to one of these three schools. I always recommend going to a live audition, whether that's like a live virtual or if it's a live in person, mainly because just remember that it's a two-way street. You know, we want to make sure we're a right fit for you, but also that, you know, vice versa. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because I
Yeah.
think it gives you the opportunity to work with two of our technique faculty. And then it also allows you to see how they talk about body and being in space, how they talk about their spine. Maybe you jive with that, maybe you don't. Because the reality is those are, you know, two individuals that you're going to be with for 4 years. And also I would say going to actually visit the schools itself and actually seeing if you can take a class, I think is very vibrant. I definitely think that you dance differently in the concrete jungle of Los Angeles than you do kind of in the suburban areas of Ohio, which is both great places to be dancing. So I say this, just try to feel that out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that kind
absolutely.
of answer your question?
No, I think it
Okay.
did. Let's see. I'm gonna jump. We had someone submit a question when they registered, and I'm gonna insert it here actually.
I love
And
it.
it was about transfer students. If there's a student that has maybe decided that they're at a dance program and they want to switch dance programs, or if maybe they started at a different university on a different program and have decided, no, 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 I want to do dance as a career. If you have any words of advice or yeah, I guess advice for someone maybe taking a little bit of a more
Great.
roundabout path.
Great question. I'm very honest, everybody. So I always say, like, I always warn people for that. So I think of if I was a transfer student, why am I doing this? It probably would be to either A, save money, or B, get a lot of credits out of the way that aren't dance focused. Both are great. Both are great answers. So I'm just kind of living with your brain. So I think that make sure if you know what program you want to transfer into, do the research, because I think every school is just a little different as far as how they deal with transfer applicants coming into the program.
Mhm.
CalArts is a private school, but we're still nonprofit, and it's definitely a conservatory setting. So really, we don't have a minimum GPA requirement. We also don't require any SAT or ACT scores. So some people are like, amazing. Some people are like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm really smart, which is also amazing. But one of the things I highlight is your audition really does matter. And we're going to look at your technique. So primarily, if you're coming in as a transfer student, we will place you based upon your technique and your level, and comparing that to kind of where we think you are, you know, and then we'll look at the credits to see if they do align, but you'll still get those credits. It's not like they just disappear. But that's kind of our policy. And I know other schools, they'll be like, no, it's if you transfer in, no matter how many credits, you start kind of in the first year. And others are like, yeah, if you have all these credits, come on in. Like, it's totally fine. You can take all the electives. So I always just say, do the research and know exactly what schools you want to transfer into, because the majority of the credits will come that way. But you just want to make sure that if your goal is like, I don't want to spend as much money, or if I'm trying to like navigate that, I would definitely set up like a meeting with one of the counselors or someone from that school just to
Yeah.
make sure you're on track for that, because you could find yourself taking an extra year.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I guess my last question for this section, it's a little bit of a jump back, but I love how you mentioned, so you don't have a minimum GPA, you don't require SATs or ACTs, but you can submit those if you want. I feel like that relates back to what you were talking about, how everyone has something different to bring to the table. And do you feel like that enriches the student body in terms of like diversity of minds and approaches in the classroom?
Oh, definitely. At CalArts in particular, we also offer a BFA in dance, but then we also offer an MFA in choreography.
Mm.
So I would say with our choreography cohort that we always bring in, we always make sure that it's a very diverse kind of like mindset with that. And then
Mhm.
alongside of that, even with our BFA class, I think that we're really looking for individuals that are very open-minded to really, you know, press the boundaries of dance. You know, where can we go and where can we take dance? And I
Yeah.
think that that's not just about taking the 8 count and being so great at it, but like, how do you do the 8 count? Like, I want to see it in your body because it's not going to look the same in her body. And so I think that those are students in particular that we are really looking for. And I think that that offers such a unique experience for the cohort. So as we don't have placement and technique, you'll find someone comes in and they're this amazing hip hop dancer that is just jaw dropping. As someone, you know, might have this huge excel in this other area of dance or this other genre, maybe they're amazing at Cunningham. And Holly loves you for that. So one of the things I think that's great for that is you learn from each other. And that's something that we really try to build within the program. And then we also have a repertory show, but then we also have a focus on new work. So we try to, you don't have to be a choreographer, but we just try to get you to start thinking and molding in that way because the reality is I think a lot of choreographers are doing that, you know, where they asking you to kind of collaborate basically with them. Not everyone, but some.
Yeah. No, definitely sets you up for a more flexible entry into the workforce, if anything, just being able to pivot when needed or when
definitely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm going to take this opportunity to move on to our last slide and introduce Kevin Zambrano, who
There's another Kevin.
Another Kevin, yeah, Kevin
Yes.
#2. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
So Kevin graduated from CalArts with BFA, and he's here to talk a little bit about that experience and then how that served him professionally. So Kevin, I thought we would just start by, take us back to the first few months after you finished your degree at CalArts. What was happening career-wise? How are you feeling emotionally and professionally? Paint us a picture.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018, and then the summer was doing a bunch of traveling and doing like intensives, just kind of seeing, what I want to do with my career, as well as networking in that way. And then for a few months, it was mostly just freelance in Los Angeles. So doing different gigs like backup dancing and music videos, and then working like in company work and assisting. So I really was delving into both worlds that Los Angeles has to offer. And that was the beginnings of my dance career.
That sounds really exciting. How do you feel like we're in those few months or in those experiences? Did you feel like you had moments where you were sort of tying the specific interdisciplinary approach you were able to take in college to the life of a professional dancer?
I mean, definitely, especially in regards to jumping from different qualities of dance or different types of jobs. I think I learned that a lot at CalArts, where you're running from a rehearsal for a thesis that's more contemporary, and then you have to go to class that has to do with film and how do you dance on film. So it's these like quick switches in your brain that you have to utilize. And I definitely found, I didn't realize that was what I was learning. Like, I didn't realize that the mapping of all those different characters as a dancer, I was really learning until I put it in the real world and was like, oh, this is what they were teaching us.
Yeah, that's really cool that it was sort of like a post-grad realization of how it all comes together. Do you feel like you're kind of in a similar vein? Do you feel like your understanding or approach to interdisciplinary art and dance changed over the course of when you started as a freshman to when you graduated with BFA?
Definitely. I always wanted to be in musicals, and so that I already was going in with this idea of interdisciplinary, but I didn't have like a name to it. And then going to CalArts and really understanding how interdisciplinary you can make dance. It doesn't have to necessarily be a musical, like for me. So how can I make dance the forefront and then bring in the other attributes that I want to try, like film or fashion or music? And CalArts really opened my eyes with that in instilling these different kind of experiments that we got to take in different classes. And I feel like as a student, you don't really know what you want. So it's good that CalArts gives you this tray of like, well, you're going to have to take these classes, lighting class, sound class, all these different things. And you may not use it at the end of the day. you probably will, but you may not. But it really teaches you about your own aesthetics and what you aspire to utilize as a dancer.
Yeah. What was the class you would say that maybe like you were most surprised by? Like maybe you went in thinking, okay, like just gonna check this off my requirements, and then like it turned out to be super helpful.
I think the critical studies classes were the most surprising. That's kind of like our reading and writing class, or the smart classes. It's like the non-dancing classes.
Right.
And like you're like, okay, this is the one day of the week where I have to read and write or whatever. But with CalArts, the subjects are really interesting, and they really catapulted a lot of ideas for my work. And so it was like researching in class about, I don't know, the history of inflatable sculptures. And you're like, why would I need to know this?
Right.
But it gives me influence for maybe what I want to do like set wise in creating work. And so it really opened my mind to different concepts and ideas of the critical studies classes are insane. There's so many different subjects, and they, at the end of the day, they can really inform your art making and your knowledge of art.
The other thing I wanted to just branch off and say that you were getting at, Kevin, too, is I'm also an alum of an interdisciplinary school such as CalArts. And I wanted to say that you also are taking these classes with other artists, meaning like you'll be taking these like philosophy classes, breaking down scripts with like a set designer and with like a costume designer or with like an animator. So just kind of seeing how their brain works and how it's just very fascinating. I remember this one costume designer was talking in particular. She's like, we're a set designer. They were saying how like this whole journey of the curtains in this whole play is what really matters. I'm like, what? The journey of the curtains? And then it's like, you can't unhear these things in the way that people kind of describe that. And I think that, yeah, that's sometimes worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I guess going off of that, Kevin Zambrano, did you like make any connections, like friends, classmates in class in college that have stayed with you professionally and like allowed you to network that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of CalArts is it leaves you with a network, and that's like the most important thing that you need in any career. You need to network. So I'm very connected with the faculty still. They give me a lot of jobs. A lot of my friends, I'm able to get jobs from them. I'm also able to hire them. And then also the people that they brought into the school to teach us, like master classes, worked with them. So like the network really was the seed from CalArts.
Yeah.
And without a network, you can't really do much, to be honest. So being able to leave with that was really essential.
Yeah, and I would imagine maybe like just like more creative when you have connections in like Kevin Whitmire was saying, in different fields, like you've set designers and animators and lighters and stuff. Super, like really cool. So you graduated in 2018. What are you up to now?
I was, so like a year after I graduated, I went to New York for the Broadway revival of West Side Story. So I did that, and then came back for COVID for a bit. And I started a dance residency program in LA with some of the theaters in LA. And I have a film that's at a couple festivals around the world right now, and put up a show this past year with people I met at CalArts, like lighting designer, dancers, actors. So again, that was the network that helped me build that show.
And that trajectory is what's so beautiful. Like just like all the things, sorry, just
No, you're
highlighting
fine. Go ahead.
highlighting it.
No, it's beautiful. And congratulations on the film too. And really cool that you've been able to do so many different things. I'm just wondering, like, as more time elapses from like graduation day, do you feel like the takeaways and stuff have changed or grown or continued to give back, kind of like the way you were saying you kind of made connections after the fact in the very beginning? Did that like continue to happen? You know, say.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, you go to CalArts and they're like interdisciplinary, like you're learning about all these things, and then you leave and then you focus on dance more. And then like later on you're like realize all of these tools that you've had, and dance and art in general, unless you have a contract for like 30 years, you're usually doing like one big job and then a small job and then a big one and then like 3 small jobs. Then like, so these waves of the career path, like that's when the interdisciplinary really came in like handy, was like the smaller jobs where I could just quickly come in and be a PA like for film, and then go back to being a dancer and then being a director or choreographer. So like I am able to say yes to more jobs than I would if I was just focusing on being strictly a dancer, which is also great. It just, majority of dancers, whether they go to CalArts, wherever they go, they're not just dancing. But CalArts really sets you up to being able to be good at different things.
Awesome. Great to hear. Okay, I think we are going to open it up to a Q&A. If anyone has questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A function of Zoom. You can also send them in the chat and we can keep our eyes on both. And we also have a few questions that were submitted on the registration form. So I guess I'll start by asking Kevin Whitmire. Several different people had questions about how a dance program on the West Coast or in California might differ from programs on the East Coast in terms of structure and then also in terms of like professional opportunities in film.
Yeah, I mean, in film, yeah, that's a big question. But I would say that, you know, I always talk about wherever you go to school is where you're building your network, kind of as Kevin was speaking to. I mean, obviously with dance, it's small and a lot of them are looking globally, like CalArts is looking very globally. So you're building your network kind of globally. So you're not just limited to California in particular, but it does allow us to look at, you know, we partner up with the Hauser and Wirth, different art museums, different things that are at our exposure. I also think dance on the West Coast is just really popping right now. I think that there's a lot of really great studios that are in Burbank. There's a lot of really vibrant choreographers that are just creating a lot of new work just right now on the streets, which is just really fascinating and just very exciting. Yeah, I mean, obviously the film industry is very close by as well. So you are kind of building up that relationship. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to be here in, you know, California to be a film like dancer, but I mean, it's the same, like you don't have to be in New York to audition for Broadway, but does it help you? I mean, yeah, it gives you a little leg up, you know, and it allows you to kind of get to know the area. So I think that's the pros and cons. And again, I just highlight, it matters who's in the room. So I say, if you can just be with the faculty and understand that, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. So we have a question from Sandra specifically about this connection between choreography and animation. I guess she just wants like a little bit more information, like what does it look like to get started and connected in as a dancer working in animation choreography?
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it organically happens within like having an animator. So I don't have an animator full-on brain to know that the full-on process of that, because I'm just a performing artist. I know that, Sandra, I'm sorry, that's not the answer you want. But I just want to say that as I spoke to the classes, like the you know, music composition, there's a lot of different opportunities where you are kind of working directly with animators and kind of developing those things. So obviously it's one of those things, as Kevin was mentioning, who you know and building up a network. Because I doubt that, you know, I don't think like Universal, different animators are just saying, we are like, you know, looking for dancers for this. At CalArts, obviously they are doing that. And then they do kind of develop their own little companies and things that kind of blossom from that. Yeah. So I think that that's one of the gifts of an interdisciplinary kind of training. So if you come in and you're like, whoa, this idea of dancing animation is like, this is what I want. You take your 4 years and you just collaborate with the animators. You kind of push that boundaries. Maybe you do like oh my gosh, why can't I think of the word internship? There we go. An internship with, you know, Disney, or maybe you do something with Pixar, or, you know, the head of Pixar graduated from CalArts. So there's just so many things that you connect with. You know, I think if you're come in with that specific brain, then you'll be able to make the resources, especially with an interdisciplinary school. Hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. So we have another question. This is from an anonymous enterer. If you're a BFA student or MFA student at CalArts, are there opportunities to take classes in other departments like music or visual arts?
Oh my gosh, absolutely, anonymous. So you are able to take classes in, you know, you could take a theater class, for example. There's institute classes, and an institute class doesn't require you to be a part of the school, or, you know, as long as you're a part of CalArts, school being like music, theater, dance, art, or critical studies, or film video. So I say that it just requires you to have a working pulse. So you sign up for the class, you take advantage of that, and then you'll be kind of taking those classes with, you know, other artists as well, that it might be new to them. With that in mind, it is challenging to double major. And I say that just because it takes this very special student. So obviously, if you're applying to CalArts, it would require you to attend a live audition and take a BFA, you know, dance audition. But if you're applying to CalArts for animation, for example, it requires you to submit a whole separate portfolio. So you would just have to submit both requirements for like a double majoring experience. It's not impossible. It's just really hard. Yeah. But yes, you can take all the classes.
Take all of the classes you can, for sure. I guess Kevin Zambrano, this might be good for you. Patricia has a question about finding inspiration. How do you feel like interdisciplinary approaches shifted where you look for inspiration, or how you find inspiration for dance?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a collaborator and a director, I usually will surround myself with people that like I just trust. So I don't really tell them much. I'll just say like, do whatever you want. And then that informs me about the work. So it also depends on like how hands-on you are, but I was just always inspired by the people and what they had to offer and like what their take is on either my work or on somebody else's work. So it's like there's no lack of inspiration at CalArts. It's kooky and crazy, and you're living there, and it's as if you're like not living real life for 4 years. You're just like in this insane bubble. So I promise there will be no lack of inspiration there.
I know sometimes the building's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which is terrifying, but it's great, you know, so sometimes artists are constantly creating. And I find like I'll leave the building at like a vibrant like 3 a.m. and of course there's security and everything's safe. But I'll hear like a cello or like a saxophone playing in the distance. I'm like, that's just what my spine needed.
Yeah, it's like really it's a crazy place to be.
That sounds great. A really great place to create, I would imagine, because you have so many different brains 24/7, like you said.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So Kristen had a question. I think we touched on this a little bit, but we can talk about it a little bit more. She was mentioning how like traditional higher ed contexts often have obstacles for collaboration because it's very like class. How do you go about like deconstructing that to create a transdisciplinary approach?
How do we do that at CalArts, I'm thinking? Yeah,
Go for it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, Kristen. If not, you can jump in the chat and say, that's not what I meant, Kevin. So I want to say that it happens like in both settings. So as I mentioned in CalArts, when I talked about like on the wall, there's just like people constantly looking for collaborators. You'll find as a dancer coming to CalArts, you're very courted, mainly because we're selective with the dancers in the incoming classes. So there's only so many to go around to make it sound like, you know, like you're a commodity, but also it's just people are seeking different artists out. So I think saying no is the hard thing when it comes to those other projects that you'll be taking on. So I think it happens organically within a community such as CalArts, where it's really focused in the arts and it's very centered in that realm. But then in a classroom setting, it can be challenging because also it depends upon the class. And then it's, you know, you have the instructor who's basically the director or kind of, you know, curating that experience as well. So I would say, you know, there's a lot of open classes at CalArts that really kind of question that structure in that forum. But I couldn't speak to maybe, obviously, if you're at a liberal arts school, it might be a little bit more focused in different directions or different areas. But, you know, it just depends upon what institute I think you're at as well. Hopefully that kind of answers, yeah.
No, that sounds great. I mean, I would guess there's lots of different answers.
Yeah.
In terms, because there's like lots of different ways to go about it. But I mean, I think what we've been talking about today is just kind of like putting a lot of different brains in the same room and just kind of letting them collaborate.
No, for sure. And yeah. And it's also hard, I think, just communicating with other artists and getting your ideas across and being able to give feedback. It all sounds so simple, but it's just like feedback in general of how can I grow with this? It's not about like, I didn't like that. It's like, okay, well, how am I going to grow by you just saying you didn't like that? It's like, I saw this and I don't know, did you want this? Or
Right.
this is the result that made me feel like this. Is that what you wanted? Or what are you going for? So it's just a different way, I think, of that approach and that mindset. That's kind of like where we talked about at the beginning. It's just, I think, what makes successful, I think, artists that have like a, you know, like an art.
Yeah. Kevin Zambrano, we asked if you had a class that surprised you the most. Did you have a class that was your favorite?
I mean, I loved CalArts. It was so fun. I think the dance film, it was Cine Dance. I had my senior year. You had to take like dance film throughout to get to that class. And it was kind of like that music and dancers class, except it was half seniors and MFA in film and then half seniors and MFAs in dance.
I see.
So then each week you would pair up and either the dancer would be the director or the filmmaker would be the director. And then the final product was like a full-on collaboration. And just, again, like hearing filmmakers talk about dance is so different from dancers talking about dance, or what the filmmakers see in the film and like what they're trying to highlight in the film. So that was like really awesome. And we left with like 3 films that we got to make. Also, because of CalArts, they have like crazy film equipment that now I realize not being at CalArts is really hard to get. So you have these like really nice films that you make at CalArts. And yeah, that was probably my favorite class just because of the freedom we had to really just make whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
Really awesome.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was just thinking about that because I'm watching a lot of scary movies and how like light and shadow is such movement. Like, you know, there's just different realms of, yeah, how you look at movement on the camera versus a live performance.
Yeah, for sure. That's like a really cool point. I think we have gotten all our questions unless anyone wants to last minute drop something in the chat or the Q&A, or if, oh, you know what? We just got one.
Yes.
When do you think is the best quote unquote time for artists to start an MFA program if they're still trying to figure out kind of like their path they're taking in the arts?
Whenever, I want to say whenever it's right for you. And I mean, like, in all honesty, I say trust what moves you. I think that I have my MFA and I wanted it right out of undergrad. I had to have it right out of undergrad. And everyone advised me like, now, Kevin, like, I don't really advise that you do that. And I was like, no, I have to, I just have to. And I do really wish I waited. Like, looking back, I really do. Because first of all, you learn so much, as Kevin was saying, the other Kevin, in undergrad, that it's like, it takes like a year or 2 to digest all of that craziness. And then it's like, and then kind of make, not only digest it, but then have your own thoughts about it and how it lives in you. And then I think that MFA program allows you to really kind of come back and re-question. And for me, I felt like I was always questioning, and I knew, and then I was kind of questioning. And the only other reason that's just my own journey, but I still got in and I made it happen. But I would say that, if you are applying right out of an undergraduate program to an MFA program, really know your voice and know who you are as an artist, because you want to be very clear, because not that that's like a red flag, but it's also makes us kind of wonder, like, well, what, why aren't you going into the professional realm, or what is the reason behind that? And sometimes it's because, you just want the degree or you just want to teach. But so I just say, just know, you'll know when it's right for you, but just really digest, I think, what you've already learned and honor that. That's my advice.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to piggyback off of that.
No,
like, again, what Kevin was saying, that you should really know what you want as an artist, because I loved working with the MFAs because you get to go through a really big shift with them, because a lot of them start and they're like pushing back because they obviously they think like they know what they want, but they don't really know what they want until that like wall falls down, and then they just explode with creation and like stuff that they would have never imagined. So if you don't have a real understanding of what you want, I think it will be even harder to get to that final aha moment that is so special that I think CalArts provides the MFAs.
Awesome. One other question. Dinar is wondering if there are PhD programs in interdisciplinary art and if they're involved in interdisciplinary creative processes.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that I can name a couple other schools that I know that offer a lot of yeah, yes. Ooh, that was great. That's very exciting. I'm excited for your journey. But at CalArts, we don't offer one in dance that would be like a PhD. We just have the MFA. And I'm just talking about dance, but it seems like you're in this broader scope. But we do offer, I think, a PhD that would be, it's kind of housed within the music school. But I would there's a lot of different programs that do across the US and even, across the globe.
Absolutely.
I'm also going to plot my email in the chat too.
Yeah.
You guys, please feel free, everyone, to reach out to me with any questions. And I hope to see some of you at, our auditions. We're going to be live this year. So one in Seattle, one in New York, and then one here at the Red Cat in Los Angeles. And then one will be virtual because, as I mentioned, 29% of our student body is international, and everybody needs to, work with our technique faculty.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kevin and Kevin.
Yes.
Like you said, if you have any questions, you can reach out to him via his email. Yeah, have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Dance Media.